Hey, kia ora koutou whānau. Welcome back to another edition of Big Hairy News with the Big Hairy Chewy, actually in studio, not in undisclosed location with a cell phone coverage not being very good. Evening, sir.
With a brand new cell phone that I didn't know how to work yet. That was good.
Was it the flip?
It's even more confusing.
Yeah, it's a flip that way.
It's a fold.
Yeah,
and I got given it basically that night, and I was like, oh shit, I've never tried to do this from the phone before, and it looked like garbage, and I couldn't hear anything. It was good.
Yeah, good advert. Should we big up that phone then? What it is and how it works and stuff.
It's an iPhone.
Nice to be, of course it is. Nice to be back with you. It's g'day to everybody in the chat getting there already. Welcome. We've had a bit of a strange couple of weeks here in Big Hairy News. Obviously, we had basically a week where we didn't have any show. Actually, more than a week, I think, because I think we did one on Monday, and then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday we did not, and then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday we did not, and then we were back last Thursday and we're back again. So, good. Thanks for sticking with us, and thanks for still being with us, and good to have you here. And we're back. I came back from Auckland with a bit of a nasty cold, like a lot of people seem to be having at the moment. And so my partner actually went away in the weekend, and I had the house to myself pretty much, and I did nada, absolutely nothing. Spent most of the time on the couch. Actually watched on Netflix, there's a documentary series about Monty Python. I think it's a 6-part documentary series. Watched the whole thing over the weekend.
Nice.
Really good, really interesting. And actually one of the things we're going to talk about next with Sean Plunket, I was reminded of a Holy Grail skit where bravely ran Sir Robin, he bravely ran away, and that kind of relates to a bit of the conversation we're going to have tonight about Sean Plunket bravely running away. What about you, Chewy? You went away in the weekend, had a good time?
Yeah, went up to see my brother up in Christchurch. First time I've been up there in a while. Did a drive up. I can confidently say that people that drive Ford Rangers, a vehicle similar to Ford Rangers, are a fucking menace. Like, every time I saw an unsafe maneuver, passing on a blind corner, cutting someone up, it was always a Ford Ranger.
Right.
Just remarkable. But outside of that, Christchurch, they've put some stuff back up after the earthquake.
Is it going? Because I probably moved to Christchurch for a couple of years, and even a couple of years ago, my enduring memory of Christchurch was road cones and high-vis vests. How is it in Christchurch at the moment?
Oh, they're still doing that.
Okay. Lots of road cones, lots of high-vis vests?
Yep. But hey, look, I went for a little sticky beak down around the suburbs that sort of on the edge of the red zone and that sort of thing. It's still really weird. Like it kind of looks like a park, it's come back, but then you notice that the trees are all sort of lined up like the old sections were. And you're like, oh yeah, there used to be houses here.
Right.
It's crazy.
Right.
But yeah, I can say that their food and hospitality scene is kicking off. There's some great pubs, there's some great restaurants. I think a lot of the building that they've done, like, rezoning for higher density and, where there would be one house in a section, now there's like 5 townhouses. It's bringing a lot of people into Christchurch, especially with the housing unaffordability, because the prices in Christchurch have trended downwards because there's more of them.
Right. Do you think it'll end up like Napier after obviously the famous quake there, whatever it was, 5 million years ago, 100 years ago, whatever? ended up being one of the reasons it's such an iconic little town now is because of that earthquake. Do you get the feeling that Christchurch is going to be bigger and better because of the earthquake once it's all sorted?
I did think about that, right? Because so you think about the Napier earthquake or the rebuild of Napier, and you think Art Deco, right? Because everything had to get rebuilt in such a small amount of time that they used the pervading architectural look, right? And I'm sure in future decades we'll look back at Christchurch and go, oh, that's a post-earthquake style townhouse or that sort of thing. And it did make me sort of wonder whether that architectural style is going to stand up as well as Napier's did.
Yeah, well, the thing about architecture, isn't it? Every time you think about doing something, and you've done this recently with your kitchen, I always think classic styles. You know, classic styles, classic colours, things that don't date. You don't want one of those fucking maroon walls at the end of your lounge that make you go, oh, there's a 1990s job. You want classic. Like I remember someone telling me once that anytime you take a photo, you should always take your glasses off. Because if you don't take your glasses off, as soon as you see it, you go, oh, from the 80s. Just think about all those 80s photos when you see the glasses. That's one of the ways to date it. So, yeah. All right. Hey, bunch to talk about tonight. First of all, though, let's say a huge thanks to our patrons. Hello, patrons. Haven't been able to say thanks to you guys properly of recent times. But a big thank you if you're involved. If you're not involved yet, hello. Time to get involved. Patreon.com/Big Hairy News. I'm going to say as well, we talk about ways you can support us. And this is one way, and this is a literal financial way, and it helps pay a few bills here and there. The other way is to tell people about us, to share our content, to follow us on Twitter and share our content there, to tell people about us. But I also heard today, a little sparrow told me, that the latest Horizon Who's Using the Media poll has us as one of the options. So if you're doing the Horizon poll,
we're on a poll.
Yeah, make sure you tell the Horizon pollsters that you're a Big Hearing user, and that means I mean, imagine if if in a poll setting we had some kind of traction. Is that the right word? I don't know. It's a bit weird for a couple of losers from Dunedin with no money and just a couple of microphones and a couple of cameras starting to get looked at by polling agencies. Weird. So anyway, lots of ways you can help. Other ways, obviously, to subscribe to the audio podcast. There it is along the bottom of the screen right now. If you're listening to the audio podcast, you don't need to know where it is. But for those of us who are watching right now or watching in the future, Spotify, Google Podcasts, but our preference is for you to listen to us on Apple Podcasts, because then that gives us a chance to be in the Apple charts. And if we're in the Apple charts, we are fairly regularly a top 5 podcast in the news commentary section. We're sometimes number 2 or 3. But if we stay in there and we stay traction and we get up the charts, then that helps us get guests, especially coming up to the election. Whether we like it or not, it gives us credibility, and it means, we're able to use that in our introductions to people and say, hey, Mr. Luxon, you went on the platform, I think this morning or yesterday morning. Good Lord.
Did he go on the platform?
Yeah. Yeah. I haven't got
what the fuck?
Any of that for tonight. But yes.
What the fuck?
But, how about coming on the number 1 news commentary podcast in the country? Not that we are, but that's the point about subscribing to the audio podcast. Alrighty, mighty. Evening to people who are just turning up now. Hello, Ivan. Yep. Hello. Hello, Guru. Yep. Hello, Politikiwi. Just getting in there a bit late. Let's have a look. Speaking of the platform, let's have a look at quite an interesting story about a man who was said to be before the courts. So Sean Plunket, police have applied to withdraw unlawful publishing charges against the broadcaster. Now, of course, what that means is Sean Plunket has come back and saying, happy to report that all charges against me in relation to publication of a family court proceeding have been withdrawn by police. That's not actually the case, by the way. That's inaccurate as of right now.
Are you saying Sean Plunket isn't being 100% accurate?
Let's be fair. I've heard from people who know this world, and they basically say it will get if the police are suggesting it to be withdrawn, it will get withdrawn. But as of right now, they haven't been withdrawn. Broadcaster Sean Plunket, who is facing charges of unlawfully publishing family court documents, may soon be free from prosecution. According to a document obtained by NZME, police have applied to the district court to withdraw all charges against Plunket. The application will need to be decided only on by a judge before the charges are formally withdrawn. So I'm splitting hairs, and I know I am, but they're not withdrawn yet. But the summary of most people who seem to know this world a bit seem to say that the judge is just a rubber stamp. So if Plunket had said the charges look like they will be withdrawn, probably fair. But he says they have been withdrawn, which they haven't yet. Now, I'm not saying that to then have to make a culpa tomorrow and go, no, we were wrong. They've been withdrawn today. It looks like they probably will be, right? But I'm just trying to be accurate here.
We're just poking the bear. This is why I'm not a policeman, by the way. Because if I was a policeman going, oh, well, we'll withdraw those charges, we'll request they have those charges withdrawn. If I saw that article, I'd go, oh, really? Oh, okay. No, they're going back on. They're going back on.
Yeah.
Because you're a dick.
According to the charging documents filed in April, the 58-year-old broadcaster was charged with 2 counts of publishing a report of family court proceedings identifying a vulnerable person. Under the Family Court Act, any person may publish a report of proceedings of the court, but the report cannot identify any person under 18 or deemed by the court to be vulnerable. The term report includes news articles, social media posts, or other written publications. Both charges carry a maximum penalty of 3 months imprisonment or a $2,000 fine. Today's application, filed by police prosecutor Morgan Spate, says police recently reviewed the charges and believed, quote, the subject of the publication does not meet the definition of a vulnerable person. Now, there was quite a bit of pushback on Sean Plunket's site. People saying doesn't mean you're not guilty of it. No crime, then republish. This is my favorite. No crime, then publish the details again. So I took to Twitter and I said this: Sean Plunket is parading around telling people police have withdrawn the charges laid against him for breaching a family court suppression order. This is not quite accurate, and I think that's a fair way of saying it. It's not quite accurate. It looks like they probably will be, but as of the time I wrote this tweet, it's not quite accurate. Police have applied to the courts to have the charges withdrawn, so they aren't yet. They may be, but as of today, they are not, as a judge needs to authorise the decision. The second point is the reason for the potential withdrawal of charges is that the person who Plunket outed did not meet the definition of a vulnerable person. So I read it as he did breach a suppression order just against someone who the courts don't protect. That's how I see it. So there was that, and about someone who didn't protect. And then I've actually put a call into the police prosecutions to try and get some more details about it. That's still ongoing. We'll see what happens. A bunch of people commenting on that, but one of the people who commented on it was Mr. Sean Plunket. And Mr. Sean Plunket said to me, "You really are a moron." Remember, this is the group of people who are like, no ad hominems. We'll go to the facts. No ad hominems. Yada yada yada. And I'll just go through some of the responses for you two. You might enjoy this more than anybody else, but then we'll get to the summation of it. My response was, you are an adorable ex-public broadcaster who is about to not be able to carry your $150,000 monthly burn rate once business mummy and daddy runs out. Maybe Laws and Devlin should start looking for new jobs. I'm sure you'll be fine with your unauthentic right-wing grift, but others won't be quite so lucky, eh? And his response was, thanks for confirming. Now, this is where I thought, let's have some fun. Why don't you ask me to come on? You ask everyone else to come on and talk about it. Why don't you ask me to come on and talk about all the background information I know about your operation and the dealings of people with that you've used to work with? Open and honest debate. His response: you can ring to my show anytime. It's just that you're always saying people should come on my show and we can talk about it, especially when it's someone you want to bully. But it seems you won't offer me the same honour. Fine, it's your show, your prerogative. To which he said, well, you are somewhat challenged, mate, but I presume you can you can use a phone. And then I put up the Monty Python, run away, run away, run away. So no, there was another tweet in there that hasn't come up in this thread. I'm not entirely sure why, but I said to him, I offered him a deal. I said, how about I come on your show? I'm not quite sure why it hasn't come up. Maybe if I go in here, it'll have come up. I made him a deal, and the deal was, in fact, I think a couple of people liked it. Maybe I can find it if I go here, because I know Radar liked it. I said to him, here we go. I said to him this: I'll do you a deal. Let's chat live on air. Every time I interrupt you, I'll pay you $100. And every time you interrupt me, you can pay me $50. No filibustering. Deal? ? No response. So, I was having a bit of fun with Karen. And it was interesting, though, because he does do this a lot. He does say things like, like he's talking to often a woman that he wants to shout at. And he goes, just come on my show. You're welcome to come on my show. Come on my show, Suze Wilson. Come on my show, any other people, and we'll talk about it. I say to him, you say that all the time, why don't you let me come on your show and we'll talk about it? And his response is, well, you can phone in as a talkback caller. It's funny how he sort of bravely runs away about that. It's like you would think that, you know, open and honest conversation. And the offer is, and listen, if you're a fan of Sean Plunket, you should be actually pushing him because, you know, I've kind of challenged him to a conversation on his show and he said no. Right. So I'm just saying, if you think he's this big, you know, strong sort of broadcaster who's always got the answers, then maybe you should be saying to Sean Plunket, you should have Pat on because you'll destroy him, Sean. You know, as long as we can have that deal, I will pay you $100 every time I interrupt you, Sean. And when you interrupt me, you can pay me 50. I think I'll be up by the end of the conversation, Joey. I don't know what you think about that.
It's such a common tactic from these guys, though, isn't it? You know,
Yeah.
debate me in the marketplace of ideas. And by marketplace of ideas, I mean a battlefield of my choosing where you're coming uphill and I have the right to hit the big red button to dump the call. You know, it's, you know, someone in the chat says he's just wasting your time. And that is true. And
No,
it is literally sea lioning. It is wasting your time. And that is a big problem if you don't have time to waste.
Yeah, I had some fun
if you
today.
like to play with your food,
Yeah.
then go for it. I mean, I certainly do. I love to wade into these things going, I'm risking nothing. I just want to make some points and get out and see what happens. And yeah, I mean, he's not a serious broadcaster. Do you want to make a bet, Pat? Do I pull out one of my famous bets here and go, you know, once he's burned through his money, he's going to be on reality check radio anchoring
No,
there?
I've been thinking about this. I'll tell you what I think will happen. Here's Pat's prediction. Sound effects. Pat's prediction is they'll burn through their money. So I don't know if you've seen at the moment, they're looking for people to pay $3 a month to become members. Sorry, $3 a week to become members. And if you look at the thread, I was associated this. I was informed of this by someone else, and so I went and had a look at it today. If you look at their thread, most people in the chat, when they put it up for $3 a month, are saying, why would we give our money to you? You're a grifter. We give our money to reality check radio. That's a really common theme all the way through. So remember we talked about Plunket's dilemma way back, that he was pitching this as a place for these conspiratorial people, the anti-vaxxers, anti-mandate, you know, anti-Jacinda groups. And at some stage, he was going to either have to follow that line. We've been saying this since they started. Follow that line through, which is not where he sits authentically. I know lots of people remember who know Sean Plunket from broadcasting. That is not where he sits with his politics. So that means at some stage, he was either going to have to cut that tie and risk losing all that audience, or he was going to have to start continuing down this fake path. Now, he's pretty much cut that tie. He sat down with business mummy and daddy, even though he says he has all the authority to make the decisions, and together, he's already publicly talked about this, he decided to stop going down that path. So now he's in a position where all those people who are occasionally tuning in and out, and he has a big audience, let's not bullshit, much bigger than us, aren't going to fund him or finance him because they don't like the other stuff he's doing, yet that's still probably a big part of his audience. So I've heard from industry insiders, again, I'll say people who are in the know, people who work in broadcasting and media, that his burn rate at the moment is about $150,000 a month. Now, he got $2 million at the start of that. Yeah. And that's including, he's getting tens of thousands of dollars from some memberships. But the problem is, if you're getting $50, $60, $70,000 a month from memberships, and you're already burning between 150 and 200K, once you get to the end of business, mummy and daddy, you don't have enough to survive. So what's going to happen is it's going to shut down. Laws is going to have no work. Devlin's going to have no work. Most of the producers are going to have no work, and Plunket will become an Alex Jones type character doing it on his own by himself. And he'll have used business mummy and daddy's money, just like he used public broadcasting money at RNZ and Fair Go, to build his profile to continue feathering his own nest. There's what's going to happen. There's the prediction. You watch it come through.
I'm not going to take that bet. I'm not going to take that bet. But yeah, the cheek of someone that nominally has $3 million to run his little hobby podcast thing, sticking his head out for more from his listeners is, just do it our way. Have no money and stick your head out.
Well, if we had $3 million, you said $3 million. I think they got given $2 million. But if we had $3 million, we could have a staff of 4 working full time for probably 6 years, with zero other income coming in. Like, we could do that today. So, this is what's going to happen. This is what I think. I think at the end of it, it will fold. well, when I say it will fold, maybe he'll keep the branding. But that's actually, at the moment, I actually think he might have told me this when I podcast with him. He might have said that they own 60%, the Wilson family. Is that right? The Wilson family? Whatever it is, the trust.
The Wright Family Foundation.
Right family. And so I was about to say he might get to keep the branding and stuff and go on off his own, but he probably doesn't own the majority of it. They probably own the majority of all the assets, which will include the name and the branding and the website and the Facebook page and all of that. But he'll probably launch something the next day by himself. And, you know, you go from having to bring in 150K a month to bringing in 20K a month or 15K a month, and you do quite well for yourself. And that's my prediction. That'll be what happens.
Yeah. No, I can believe it.
All right. Anything in the chat about that? I mean, other than people laughing at Sean Plunket. I know it's hilarious because, look, we're honest. I mean, we say this all the time. He's bigger than us. There's no qualms about that. You know, if we had millions of dollars behind us and we could pay for everything that they get to pay for, we'd have a much bigger audience as well. We don't. We're growing more slowly. We don't have that investment or injection of cash and funds. It is what it is. We're growing. Actually, if you look at our growth rate between how many people watch each episode now versus day one, you know, we used to have 5 people watching us live. And now it's between 50 and 100. And that might not sound like a lot, but we're a New Zealand specific market for a New Zealand audience.
We're very niche.
Yeah, we're very niche. So, and also, you know, it's not just the centrists who it's the lunatic lefties who watch us. You're all lunatic lefties, aren't you? Or it's people watching us to rage watch. They're the two kind of people who watch us.
The wokerati is a term that I'm quite enjoying at the moment. There are a couple of chats here. Simon says Plunket has only been to the anti-vaxxers since his business mummy and daddy gave them told him to stop them to tone in the anti-vaxxer talk when you get rid of Rodney Hyde.
Yeah.
Politikiwi says the right marketplace of ideas is essentially the crypto market, artificially inflated, designed to scam the vulnerable, and filled with clones all trying to be originals of someone who had some legitimacy. Yeah, very true.
And like I said, I mean, you know, the whole thing about what they're doing, the reason it's sort of hypocritical, might be the wrong word, but certainly not honest, is that the only reason Plunket has any kind of profile at all is because of the public funding. RNZ, Fair Go, they're the big jobs. The only reason he's got a 3 million or 2 million, whatever it is, dollars at the moment is because of public money, because his funders company or trust gets $300 million a year of public money. And what's going to happen is all of that, he's using this to raise his profile elsewhere, and then he'll go off and do his own thing again. So actually, he's the definition of a grifter, just doing it for the money. And he'll probably win out in the long run by, you know, starting something up and being quite comfortable for the next 5 or 10 or 15 years until he has his next heart attack. You know?
Peter in the chat here has actually brought something up that I read as well. One news article tonight: the Wright Foundation have likely blown millions on a maternity hospital, counting in government funding, and that's not going to happen now that the funding's not coming.
Right.
So they had enough money to build it before the funding, hoping that the funding was going to come in, and now it's not. They don't have enough money to run it. So that's interesting. Imagine having so much cash that you can build a hospital and then go, nah, we're going to walk away.
Sheesh. And
we
so
we haven't got the government money coming.
Yeah, that 2 million we've invested so far in plans and that kind of stuff, we'll just call that a loss and put it on our books and walk away. All right. Hey, let's move on because we've got like 4 things to talk about tonight, and I don't want to be here till midnight. Well, I actually kind of do. I love doing this. I really do. The only thing that would be better than doing this is to get paid for doing this. That'd be the only thing that was better than doing this. No, I'm not going to do a push for Patreon right now. Trust me, I'm not. Let's have a look at this. I'm going to need to take my clothes off in a second because it's too warm down here. But what I'll do is I'll put a story on first, and then I'll get.
That's going to be on OnlyFans, by the way.
I think this is a really interesting conversation, right? I've got a couple of clips to play you about this hunting competition that happened in North Canterbury. Let's first of all, if you haven't heard it, get the gist of the conversation, shall we?
Our next story contains images some viewers may find upsetting.
Ugh,
the controversial
like
North Canterbury hunting competition in Rotherham wrapped up today with the animal weigh-in. Despite children no longer being allowed to shoot feral cats after a public outcry, protesters still express their disapproval at the competition. Katie Stevenson reports.
Drawing crowds from near and far, hunters weighing their catches at this community event. 82, it's 82.
A record entry.
82.
Imagine working the
Obviously got
the
the
rat
attention of a lot of people
whale.
around the world, so massive entries, over 1,500.
That attention coming after making international headlines for introducing a feral cat category where kids could compete. Among the concerned was animal rights group SAFE, worried people's pets would be killed.
We got backlash pretty hard with the whole kids thing, and at the time we didn't sort of think it was going to go global, so we didn't sort of have the rules lined up. So we brought it back and put it in the adult section, and with rules.
Those rules included using box traps and staying 10 kilometres away from any homes or lifestyle blocks.
That's pretty good.
If anybody thinks that someone's going to go out there and shoot poor old pet Moggy, they're sadly mistaken. This is about the wild cats out there on the hill that are killing lots of birds.
It's not your tame cats that you cuddle at home. Unfortunately, people don't de-sex their pets, and the runoff ends up in the country and we have to control them.
But tightening up the rules wasn't enough for these protesters.
We're here to protest them glorifying the mass slaughter of innocent animals and hiding behind conservation.
Tensions at some points running high.
Why are animals not just given these rights? You shouldn't win a prize for killing an animal.
Entry fees will now fund the local school and pool.
The school needs $50,000 a year that we have to find to fund our third teacher.
Despite the controversy, some hunters said to go home winners. Katie Stevenson, One News.
All right, there's the first clip. Let me play the second clip as well, because this one's been going around the internet today.
I have such strong views. I'm ready to rip.
Good. Let's have this though. This is what came out today from the Herald. So these are a bunch of kids who are protesting the protesters. If you can watch the video, they're holding cats, possums, small things that have been killed, and this is what these protesting the protesters kids were doing. They were screaming "meat, meat, meat," and parading the pest kills for the protesters.
Oh dear.
Three possums, I think.
No, a couple of those are definitely cats.
There a cat there.
You guys are being brainwashed and lied to.
Anyway, you get the idea. I think we can leave it at that to get the gist of it. So here's the thing, yeah. There's layers to this conversation. I'd love to hear people
so many
in
layers.
the chat because so it's the respect of animals' lives. Got that. But it's also pests in our environment that if I was making the decision, I would eradicate every single possum in the country to save every single native bird. I would do it like that. I wouldn't think twice about it. I would be fine with that, right? Yet there's also a layer of how the kids are acting, and you kind of do think about the brainwashing from the parents to have the kids act like that. So it's like, I don't want to sit on the fence and say I can see both sides, but I want to see every possum gone from this country in a heartbeat. If I could do something and click my fingers and they'd all drop out of their trees and be dead, it would be amazing. Or even better, they flew away, because then there'd be no rotting meat carcasses everywhere. I would do everything I could to protect our native species. What was being hunted was all invasive species. So I'm okay with the concept of that, but the ugliness around the protesters of basically just ramming it in their faces also doesn't feel right. So I'm not quite sure where to sit on this, Chewy.
Don't sit on a dead cat.
No.
Okay, so where I stand on this, right? Introduce pests. We all know what they do. They're absolute carnage on our native animals, and we've made such inroads on stuff like possums and you know, we're talking possums, deer, pig, feral cats, stoats, all of those sort of things. Cats are an enormous risk to our natural wildlife because we love them. We love the cute little moggies, and they love being outside, and they always come back when they're hungry, and they're definitely not out murdering all night.
Yeah.
My personal view is we should be phasing domestic cats out. You know, I'm not coming around with Gareth Morgan's cat grinding van down the street like Mr. Whippy. I'm just saying, when your cat dies, just have a real good think about whether you replace it or whether it's just an inside cat. But the thing is, you let your cat outside, you don't desex them, they run away, they breed. And yeah, your feral cat bears no relation to the cat you keep in your house. Like, you'll see people talking about farmyard cats and all of that sort of thing. They are feral death machines, and you'd never go near one.
Yep.
So they're running around in the forest, fair game. I personally would have no trouble with kids participating in a hunting competition like this. I've got mates that go hunting. One of them's got a little 8-year-old girl that goes pig hunting with him. Don't have a problem. It teaches gun safety, all of that sort of thing. The kids lined up chanting meat, I have a problem with, because it's fucking creepy.
Yeah, it's pretty creepy.
It's really, really creepy. And it is obviously adults that have pointed them in the direction of the protesters and gone, go rack them up. And kids are, of course, like, yeah, I'm going to do that. Absolutely. The protesters, my issue with them is, we don't want the nice animals to die. I get where you're coming from, but you are completely missing the point.
Mm-hmm.
You are missing the point of what animals we are protecting. And my whole thing with SAFE is that they seem to have a blind spot when it comes to cats. And they don't think about this. They don't think about feral cats. I don't like organizations that, when there's a feral cat colony and they go out and they desex them and then they release the cats again. It's like, cool, there's not another generation, but you are letting a death machine out that's just going to kill all the birds and all the lizards and all of that sort of stuff. I don't agree with any of that. But yeah, it's like the hunting community has problems as well. I see Rob Bernie's mentioned this. Hunters will love to go, hey, look, we're getting rid of pests. We're getting rid of pests. Hunters also release pests or don't hunt them hard enough to get rid of them. They hunt them to maintain. You don't want to hunt too hard because then they're hard to find. You want to find this middle ground where I can go out and hunt some more. I want to shoot possums from a logging trail from the back of my ute. I don't want to go into the forest. So yeah, both sides of this argument, they have their biases and they can't be trusted.
I had a conversation with someone over the weekend who showed me a funny meme, and it was a person on a motorbike winning the Tour de France going, I identify as a cyclist, and they win the Tour de France, And I was just like, I mean, personally, I don't find it offensive. I find it a bit stupid. But the thing we got to be careful about with that sort of thing is many people use that kind of meme as an attack and as a fuck you, as opposed to some kind of quirky, weird play on words. And it feels like the kids doing the protesting is more of a fuck you than just like a look what we've got. It feels like there's some venom to it, is what I'm saying, which would have come from the parents. And I find that a lot. And this is I'm diverting the first diversion of the day, Chewy, because it's not about this necessarily. I find that a lot in the whole kind of free speech conversation, where I feel like the right want free speech so they can use the N-word, and the left want free speech so they can have authentic and real conversations. Now, I know that's not all of the left, so don't go off on me. Where I sit on the left, which is closer to libertarian than authoritarian, like if you look at the compass, why I want free speech is to have real, authentic conversations. But I get the sense that why a lot on the right want free speech is so they can say whatever the fuck they want, no matter how offensive they are. So it's like free speech with no empathy, whereas I want free speech with empathy. And I feel that you can kind of laugh at the same joke or want the same thing, like protesting the protesters. But it's like when you call your best mate a fat prick, that's fine. But if you guys are walking through town and some stranger calls him a fat prick, it's like, no, you don't get to do that. There's different intentions behind it. And I think the intention behind those kids felt really icky. Like, it didn't feel funny. It wasn't a bit of a laugh. It felt kind of menacing, and it felt driven by the adults. And I don't think the kids, although the gumboot ratio was superb, I don't think the kids probably really knew the conversation. I think they just were indoctrinated to that thoughts no matter what. Although, and say
Oh,
again, listen,
absolutely.
but like I'll say it again. I mean, I want to see every possum gone in this country. If I could wave my magic wand, I'd have them gone tomorrow. So, I guess that's a conversation around how we communicate and what we do in a respectful way versus I'm just going to be an asshole way, or even more than that, I'm actually going to speak to you in a way that actually denies your existence. It's not really the conversation for this, but in general.
Yeah. Like, I mean, that conversation that they were having at the competition was never going to be a productive conversation.
No.
You had people standing at the gates with very emotive signs, and you had hunters coming in that were never going to react well to it. But there wasn't an exchange, like a true discussion, and there wasn't an exchange of ideas. It was always going to be the crunchy rubbing up against of the rural divide, basically. And it's like, well, look, I don't think you should be monetizing this. Well, we're donating the money to a charity and all of this sort of stuff. And we keep, like, I mean, the other big one is the Easter bunny hunt here in
Over Easter,
Central Otago.
Yeah.
Absolutely massively important thing, because the rabbits are definitely coming back. But yeah, a lot of people that don't live in those environments, don't live in Central Otago, they go, an Easter bunny hunt? Bunnies are cute, and it's Easter. It's all about bunnies. I don't like it. And look, there's kids going out and participating in that, because rabbit shooting is very easy. Got their
22s and going hunting.
And I mean, it is okay to be uncomfortable with this sort of stuff. Like, if you go, well, isn't this the glorification of killing? Yes, it is, and it is okay to not be comfortable with this. You can hold your nose and go, I don't like it, but I can kind of see the point in it.
Yeah, well, there is a reason to it, and that's the eradication of an invasive species. And we can't eradicate them. Like, I remember being on Lake Tarawera with a previous relationship and up around Rotorua, and we went out on the boat with a guide, and the guide was showing us the kind of forestry beside us, and they're like, they go through there, and they get rid of all the possums, and within 6 weeks, they're all full again. Like, they're all back again. Like a new group come in. And so if they didn't do that, there'd be double the number. So, I get it, and that's what I want to see. Lots of chat in the chat as well. One issue I have with hunters is they routinely oppose the trapping of pest animals so they have something to hunt, which is kind of what you were saying earlier. Yep. I get that cats are pests, but don't get kids to kill them. Well, I also think that maybe I'm wrong, I don't know about freestyle, but maybe we city folks are a little bit we don't really get it. Like, I've got friends, in fact, I was talking to a mate of mine from Huntly today, Matamata, sorry. We go out to the farm there and we went hunting with them to get rid of their pests, and their kids do it because it's a part of their job. It's a part of their family job to do it. So I don't know if I'm quite down with the don't get kids to kill them, because it's a different life from those of us who are raised in the cities, at least. No issue with killing feral cats. I'm hard pressed to have any sympathy for feral cats. Aaron says 1080. No, we don't like 1080. But then I'm not saying to kind of be mealy mouthed about this, but we need a solution. And I guess that's the one they're using at the moment. Not a fan of 1080, not supporting it, but what is the solution then? And then people just started listing pets to get rid of: stoats, rats, possums, deers, feral cats, wallabies, rabbits, koi carp, rabbits, hedgehogs, wasps.
Oh, hedgehogs is the hard one. I like hedgehogs. Yeah. But they're the same thing. We should gather them all up and send them back to England, where they've murdered all of them.
Well, hedgehogs are the worst as well, because why are they here? They're basically here because someone wanted their backyard to look like their English backyard. Like, I get cows, I get sheep, I get these things that have a purpose. Hedgehogs have no purpose whatsoever. Politically, I would rather have those kids participate in hunting invasive pests as a part of a dumb competition, even with the counter protest, than let them watch Sean Plunket. Minor level of indoctrination, in my opinion.
How about we tweak this slightly?
Go.
We get all of those kids that are hunting cats. We don't like them hunting cats. We get them en masse to hunt Sean Plunket. The most dangerous prey.
I'm not buying on board this, because that will be twisted by someone, and all of a sudden it'll come back to us.
Clip it.
Sean Plunket will get attacked tomorrow by a 14-year-old, and then we'll get blamed for it. Simon says, my cat has 2 bells, and since I've done that, the cat hasn't killed any birds. People have the right to be hunting feral cats. Claire says, I have a massive issue with competitive hunting. Killing is not a game. It should not be celebrated. Animals should be honoured regardless of whether you think they're a pest or not. Yeah, I mean, I actually do agree with that, but I also think the way you get people along to do like the Easter Bunny hunt or whatever is to turn it into a game. I agree. I actually agree, but I can understand how from a like maybe a marketing point of view, turning it into that makes the eradication of these feral pests more effective. So unless we all become sort of, generous givers of our time for the hunt and we don't have to turn it into a game, it seems to be a way to get a massive amount of uptake. But that might not be a good enough reason. I don't know.
I mean, circling back to the 1080 thing too, I'm going to say I'm a supporter of 1080.
Okay.
Like a lot of people point out the fact that it's banned in a lot of countries. Those countries don't have a solely bird-based ecology. They're horrifically dangerous towards mammals, and we're targeting mammals. But people go, well, why can't we leave that to hunters? Hunters and trapping and that sort of thing. Pick out a topographical map of this country and look where the forest is.
Yeah.
You can't do a trap line in the huge, vast range of landscape in New Zealand. And so 1080 is the best tool that we have. No, it's not nice. Poisoning something is not nice.
Yeah.
But
I don't know.
I don't. Best tool we have.
But I don't know if the concern is about poisoning something like a possum. I think the concern is about it getting in the waterways, and for example, another animal eating it, like a native, and poisoning that one. But yeah, I'm
1080 dissolves in water like very quickly.
Yeah.
And the bait that they use is laced with cinnamon, I think, which birds hate but mammals really like. There's a danger to like animals that would eat a carcass, like a dog or something like that. And that's why they tell you to keep dogs out.
But I guess this is where, I wrote a piece a long time ago called Intelligent Debate versus Ideology. And the intelligent debate part of this goes, it's quite hard to say no to something if it's the only thing you've got for a mass sort of eradication, which would be 1080. But it's a horrible thing. So an ideologue will say absolutely no, not ever, no way, no chance. Okay, fine. So now we've increased the number of populations of stoats 100-fold in our native bush. So what do we do? I mean, there's those new canisters. They're not new now, but they basically reset themselves, the gas-powered canisters. So, okay, so blanket.
Oh, yeah, no, those are good.
Yeah, blank. And people who don't know them, they're basically, they're a bullet thing that comes out and gets them in the brain. But it's a canister, a gas canister, and it resets itself. So it's not just a one kill. And so the stoat, whatever goes up into it, gets a bang, and then it dies. And then the thing resets. Like, put 1 million of those in our bush. But then that's going to be, then National's going to have a problem with the spend, obviously. But, what's the other alternative? I would much prefer to see a better alternative, even an equal alternative to 1080. But the intelligent debate meanings we can't just say no to 1080 and not have other. Like, what's the other? That's what we need to figure out. So, all right.
I mean, we have gone on a tangent now from hunting
slightly
I
forgot where we started. I forgot where we started, but were we talking about Sean Plunket and that flowed into feral pests? I've forgotten how we got here. Is that what we did? No.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I am just going to, because it's such a cool thing, right? We talk about pest reduction and that sort of thing. The trap that you are talking about, is absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
Not for the big mass stuff that we're talking about.
Yeah.
But it's perfect for setting up in your backyard.
Yeah.
For the mice and the rats and stuff.
I was looking to get chickens again. I've had chickens before. I was looking to get them again. And this was going to be in the chicken coop because, that will attract rats and stuff. That's what I was going to do. Didn't get chickens.
But yeah, it's one of those little things that you could do in your own house just to minimize those smaller pests.
So see that top one, the counter trap kit 189. So see how there on the left hand side for people watching, there's the big sort of vertical cylinder. So they put their head up there to get the base at the top, and then what would you call it? It's not a bullet, but it's like
it's like a bolt.
A bolt comes out from the right, comes across, instantaneous, no pain, no nothing, kills them dead. And then because of the gas canister down the bottom right hand side, it resets it, and it does like 10 or 20 or 30 things before we have to reset it. So you could put 1 million of those across the country and then have someone going through them every week, or teams of people going through them every week to redo the canisters and I guess collect the carcasses. I mean, that would be an option, but it would be expensive. That's probably the other issue when it comes to 1080. This would be expensive, albeit safer for the environment.
Yeah. I'm not sure if I'm remembering this correctly, but the Miramar Peninsula up in Wellington, they're trying to make pest free, and these are a big part of it. They were
Right.
funded and distributed to a lot of people to create a barrier, like trying to make an urban area pest free is quite ambitious. And yeah, it would only be because of something like this.
All right. We're going to keep trucking. This is the show talking about feral pests. This is the theme that's running through the show.
Oh,
Now,
what's he said this weekend?
Well, we're not necessarily going to go in depth into the conference over the weekend, but let's have a look at the story, basically giving us a summary of what was been going on, including, one particular law that's been tried all over the world before that doesn't work, that of course National's going to give a crack again to.
The National Party is promising to get tougher on criminal sentences if it gets into power. Currently, judges can use their discretion and reduce sentences for mitigating factors, but National wants to limit those cuts to 40% of the recommended sentence. It would also bring back a version of the three strikes law, and it would scrap cultural reports which review the offender's history and what may have led to their offending. That costs about $20 million over 4 years.
You got to ask why they would do that. Now, I'm being really honest with you. I can't think off the top of my head right now of an issue, a cultural issue that may lead to offending. But if there are some, and I'm thinking about like if a culture is particularly more patriarchal, is much more likely to use corporal or capital punishment with children, that might lead to something else. There could be, I think, very easily a way that doesn't. Yeah, sorry, you go.
Sorry, just point of clarification. I think the use of the term cultural in this isn't talking about a culture or ethnicity. They're talking about basically the offender's background in general.
Yeah, but I guess that's kind of what I was saying. Maybe I was clunky about it. Like if they were raised in a particular household, okay, forget the word that I use, culture. I misspoke. I was thinking it differently and said it wrongly. Thank you, dyslexia. The way that they were raised. I mean, like if you were abused when you were raised, it's a high probability you'll go on to abuse compared to the general population.
Yeah.
So if you are now going to ignore that altogether as to why someone abused, I don't know why you would get round of it. Even if it's, let's say, even if it's let's be honest, even if it was a waste of money, but it was looking at the conversation, it's $20 million. What are you losing? What if there's a percentage of people that it is relevant to?
It's really important information. Like, what are the common factors when it comes to offenders? And that sort of thing. Like, people are looking at these reports as it's just a way of getting a discount off your sentence, but it's painting an enormous picture of what the problems in our society are and how. Like, if you keep seeing the same thing, oh, this person did this because his school years was shitty.
Yeah.
And these were the factors that caused it. You can go, well, if we're going to stop the next generation doing it, we need to solve that factor. Yeah, it's the big picture thinking that National hate. They want the short fix.
Or I wonder if what National's done has got the wrong end of the stick. Like I explained that very badly. It sounded like I was talking about cultures when I was talking about the culture. Maybe they've looked at it and said, well, it's got the word culture in it, so we've got to cancel it. Maybe they've gone down that path. Because if anything's got culture in it, it means, like, why would we have to look at cultures and see their background? Maybe that's the reason for just cancelling it.
I think there is a perception of that as well. Exactly the same way that I jumped on it there. It's like, white people don't have culture.
Right.
And it's like, you can be a white offender, a European offender, and have a cultural report done that says that your European parents were shitty and you went through the same things. You would get the same discounts. It's just we don't really see that so much on, well, say with wealthier offenders. It's more about they get a discount or get off completely scot-free because it's damaging their opportunities in the future. We don't talk about that with some other offenders. We just look at their past.
Really interesting.
Don't have a future.
How about this is a comment from Isbay. National is pandering to Winston voters. Interesting. Really, really interesting perspective. Really interesting perspective. Let's keep going with this report, eh?
they would instead funnel that money towards victims. As political reporter Amelia Wade explains, their plan is totally uncosted.
So that's an interesting point. Sorry, I will let it go, but the culture of they'll get rid of the cultural sort of reports and they'll funnel it towards victims. So what if someone has been raised being abused all their life, and because of that they go on to continue offending? Are they the offender, or are they the victim, or are they both? So are you going to take the money away from their offence and give it back to them as the victim of, like, how does that work? Because you can be both. Or you can be offending because of the victim, what you went through as a victim. How does that, you know what I'm saying? It's like, it just, anyway, maybe it's that whole, we haven't thought this through.
But was received to rapturous applause at the party's national conference today.
Who's that waiting for their celebrity CEO entrance? Why, it's Christopher Luxon, of course.
National is coming back.
Consider National's rank and file rallied.
Labor will give you excuses. I'm telling you, National will give you results.
Just one quick
Notice he didn't say National will give you ideas, because that's not what they do.
little excuse from Luxon today, though, after saying in a promo video he's loved the Crusaders since he was a wee lad.
Why I love them, because I loved them since I was a little boy.
Even though the team didn't exist until he was 26.
Anyone who comes from that part of the world knows exactly what we're talking about. The Crusaders, Canterbury Crusaders, Canterbury, they're all my team.
And all these people are Luxon's team, who he's hoping will score a win at the election. Today's drive forward was a pitch to limit how much judges could reduce sentences for mitigating circumstances.
National will restore real consequences for crime with stronger sentences for convicted criminals.
So restore is an interesting one, because we're not going to, we'll keep going through, not to cut you short, but you can come back. Restore from what? Nothing's changed. Do you know what I'm saying? Nothing's changed in sentencing. Nothing's been altered. Nothing's, so what does he do? It does feel, and we're not going to talk about this now, Terry, else we'll never get through the clip, but we will come back to it. And I've tweeted about this over the weekend, that get New Zealand back on track relation to make America great again. Like, is it a conscious decision? Is it not? Because there's that obvious connection where you say to, Americans, when was America great? And some of them will say, like in the 1960s, and you're like where segregation was around. Is that what you're saying? Or they say, when it was founded, 1776, like with that slavery stuff. Like, when was it actually great? So when were we on track, Mr. Luxon? Has to be a question that he gets asked and asked and asked and asked, because it does feel, and I'm happy to have this debate, and I'm sure people in the chat will have something to say about it. Is this just a terrible slogan that's going to allow them to be attached to the MAGA vibe, or is it an intentional slogan because they want to be attached to the MAGA vibe?
It's a terrible slogan, and I'll explain why later.
There we go.
An increase in a sentence doesn't naturally flow to then reducing crime. In fact, quite the opposite. It can increase crime because, especially for youths or young people going into a prison system.
National would also extend rehab to everyone in prison, including those on remand awaiting trial or sentencing.
And with nearly 1 in 2 prisoners.
I wonder about that. I'm being a bit pedantic now, but if you're giving rehabilitation to those on remand and those awaiting trial, so if you're awaiting trial, you're innocent because you're innocent until proven guilty. So if you're getting rehab while you're waiting trial, why? What are you saying, National? Are you first wasting money on innocent people who don't need it, or are you saying everyone that's charged is guilty of a crime requiring rehabilitation?
Prisoners being on remand, that means a significant proportion of prisoners are missing out on the opportunity for proper rehabilitation.
Well, I think everything that Mr. Luxon said was very sensible, really.
Especially the...
Wait for the diversity in these commentators.
Rehabilitation of every prisoner.
I think it will deter a wee bit of crime.
With the conference now wrapped, the base is leaving happy with a tougher sentencing policy. But the same cannot be said for all of those in the judiciary. News Hub's spoken to one retired judge who says the National Party clearly doesn't trust the ones who are handing down the sentences, and even said the policy was akin to putting judges in a straitjacket. Does the National Party trust judges?
Oh, we do, but we're just making sure we find the balance to be able to give them the amount of discretion discretion that they need, but equally we need to make sure the public can see that there are fair sentences for the crimes that are appropriate to the crimes that are committed.
I think it's an egregious overreach myself. Is a big reason for why there is so much discretion held by the judiciary. They see far more than you and I will ever see, and that's essentially part of the trust that we have to have in the judicial system.
Labor says it's also egregious that the Nats don't know how much it costs a year to keep one...
Just remember this. How much the Nats are saying, I'll go back. How much the National constantly talks about, Labor doesn't know what's going on. They don't know what their budgets are. They don't know the economy. Listen to this. This is hilarious.
Says it's also egregious that the Nats don't know how much it costs a year to keep one person in prison.
It's around 100,000.
Yes,
193,000.
A lot.
And no idea how much it'll cost to have more prisoners locked up for longer.
We'll be able to answer all those questions when we're actually when he's the Prime Minister and we're in government.
National grabbing into every vote it can to make that happen. Amelia Wade, News.
Now, if Labor comes out this year and they say, I don't know how much it's going to cost, we'll worry about it after the election. What do you think National is going to say to that? Anyway, Chewy, I haven't let you talk. I've been a big overpowering patriarch here. You go at it, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely. National should be fucking lashed for going, here's our policy, here's our big unveil. We have no fucking idea how much it costs. We're the party of the economy, and we're the only ones that know numbers. We don't know these numbers, but we are definitely the party of the numbers that.
And we're going to manage the economy better than these guys. Well, how much is this going to take out of? How much is this going to take out of your managing?
idea.
I don't know, but we're going to be better, and we're going to manage it better, and we're going to do better.
I also like from that press conference the shuffling and rotating of like, do you know the answer to that? Okay, you had the mic. Oh, back to Mitchell. Just a debacle. I want to talk a little bit about that slogan that they seem to love.
Yep.
Get New Zealand back on track. Now, they might as well just drop one of the words. Just drop on. Because most of the time when Luxon says something, there's a backtrack coming. And it also plays into exactly what we've talked about, the problem with National. It's always looking over its shoulder. It's always going back. We're going backwards. We've got an idea that we had before. You know, it's not... It's my whole problem of like, if I was in the centre and couldn't make up my mind, I would want someone with an aspiration rather than a harking back to the way it used to be, because we know it's rose-tinted glasses and that sort of thing. Show me your hopes for the country, not for winding the country back. But that's who he's talking to. Look at that room.
Yeah.
These are people that their lives have mostly passed them by. And they've got rose-tinted glasses about the way that things used to be. I didn't have to learn any Māori words. I don't like how they're pronouncing the weather on the news. You know, those sort of people. I believe in the Canterbury Crusaders that have been around, as we know, for 108 years. It's just so disappointing.
I also think this has been clipped by a few people today. The point with
let's talk about consent, shall we?
Mr. Luxon grabbing the hand of his co-leader here, and she didn't look at this bit. Oh no,
she
thanks.
did not look so. What the fuck are you doing?
No, yeah, that's been
I'm not your wife.
By various things. Yeah. What about holding the hands of your like? Oh,
no,
you know,
don't do that. We did discuss this earlier. Is how I read that. Look, we're going to come back to them being tough on crime, right? The same arguments apply, and nobody's pushing back. Well, some people are pushing back on it, but it's like these things that they want to try, they've tried before, and they didn't work here.
Yep.
These are things that have been tried overseas. They didn't work there either. 3 Strikes comes from America, and it absolutely spiked their prison population and was targeted at African Americans.
And if you don't know how much it costs to keep a prisoner,
idea?
If you don't know how much it costs to keep a prisoner, how can you project a budget for next year when you're the government, if you are the government? And look, I want to say this publicly, actually. They very well may be the government. Like, I've had a few fun bits. One of the things about being sick in my chair with a cold over the weekend. You can probably still hear it in my voice a little bit. Well, I spent far too much time on Twitter, basically trolling, having some fun. And a bunch of people were like, yeah, you'll see when he's Prime Minister. I'm like, yeah, he might be a Prime Minister. It's 50-50 at the moment. You know, it's like, honestly, if I was to choose Chewy, I'd say right now they've got a national act, have got a slight edge. I'd say right now, if you're placing odds, they're probably slight favourites. They're 12 and under. Sorry, it's a rugby term, Chewy. I
was
think
that from the Canterbury Crusaders from back in the 60s?
The Canterbury Blue Saders or something. And look, what you were saying and what others have been saying about being like, when are they going to come up with something that inspires? This is from News Hub Nation over the weekend. Carmen Parahi asking the question about where are the big ideas from National. Well, this is, and we've been talking about this for a long time. Anything that's aspirational, that's inspirational, that sticks with New Zealanders for the next 40 years comes from Labour. I've asked this 10 times and no one has given me a policy yet that's come from National that this country will fight to keep tooth and nail, that the other party has to keep in or they won't get elected. You know, whether it's the state housing, the free healthcare, working for families, interest-free student loans, any of those things, National had to then take on board because and agree that they wouldn't get rid of them because they're beloved by everyone. There's no policy coming from National anywhere. No one's given me one that would be the other way, that Labour has to take on board or they'll lose an election. Not one in 100-ish years, well, 70-ish years, not one. And so here's Carmen Parahi talking on News Hub Nation in the weekend. Not quite as black and white as that, but similar idea around big ideas.
One of the things they didn't address the fact that National helped cause the housing problem because they had such an open immigration policy, right? Because they had, when Key was in power, right? So they had a huge immigration policy. We allowed more and more migrants in, which was great for economy, great for business, not so good for housing. We didn't fix our housing issues. We still haven't fixed them properly yet. So the fact that he said today, we're all about housing, I'm like, well, you didn't actually say that you stuffed it up in the first place, right?
Well, so, but no political party ever says, oh, yeah, we've really got it wrong, sorry about that.
Yeah.
We're just going to say, let's look at the future.
I'm waiting and waiting for something from National to give us something substantive. There's nothing wrong with simplistic at all, but there's nothing substantive from them yet.
And there's nothing to be gained by having a shot at gangs and saying that is the solution to the problems of law and order in Aotearoa.
Or having a shot at health inequities for Māori, right? So we had this huge debate earlier this week around the new health inequity tool that's being used. Quite rightly, ethnicity is just one of the markers. Not all of them, is just one of 5.
There was a focus, and there was a focus on.
And so Luxon talked about, we shouldn't have Māori and Pacifica shouldn't be on this, and so did Shane Reti, which is problematic because it actually doesn't show us that they understand that there is huge inequities for Māori and for Pacifica in our health system.
All right.
Boom. I think that's what the kids call a mic drop. Well, the kids from the 2000s call that a mic drop.
All of those things that they've talked about, you know, we didn't have a chance to touch on the health inequities aspect and that sort of thing. But all of these things, you look at what National are proposing or what they're talking about, and then you immediately go and look for someone that works in there, that's actually an expert in there. And they're all going, it doesn't work. This doesn't work. Like the health inequity thing, that blew up. Oh my God, the people in the comments of the news story and that were scandalized. It didn't matter that it had been working that way for 2 years. And it was never an issue until now, because we've got to stoke up some racial division to get the election popping for us, because we're pushing shit uphill. And this is the thing that I want everybody listening to take on board. It's fucking working. It is working. It is motivating people to vote that way. And we've said this on the show before. The left doesn't vote, then we don't win. And there are people that go, oh, there's no point in voting because they're all the same. You need to go out and find those people in your circle that say those sort of things and convince them otherwise. Be persuasive, because these guys are just going for straight emotion rather than facts. And that'll win them an election, and it's worked before.
It's a good slogan, that, eh? If the left vote, the left wins.
Almost like someone should put it on a T-shirt.
Yeah. Someone should fucking wear that T-shirt in the next broadcast, maybe.
I should. It's actually sitting in the kitchen. Yeah, like people are going to focus on the fact that you just fucking told me off. But yeah, like you were saying, like this election is going to be close.
Oh, totally. And I'll be honest. Look,
very,
I'm
very close.
The thing I've been loving about Twitter over the weekend is all these people making comments about me and about us and about the show who don't know a fucking clue what we're doing. We're going to prove that in a moment. Well, I'm going to prove it. You may not, Chewy, maybe in a different place, about the Greens and their appearance of hypocrisy around donations. Appearance, we'll get there. And I can see similarities to Luxon's appearance or actual hypocrisy when it came to his rebates last week. I think when a party puts themselves out there for criticism, you don't want to give the opposition fodder. What's happened with the Greens and their donations over the last week has put themselves out there for criticism. Now, I always say this, the criticism may not be valid, or it may be valid, but the appearance of something in politics is almost as good or bad as the thing itself. The appearance of being a good person is almost as good as being a good person. The appearance of being a prick is almost as bad as being a prick, So we're going to talk about that in a sec. But what I was going to say is people see a clip or they see a tweet or whatever, and they make up their mind about the overall things we're talking about. Anyone who watches us knows, we will celebrate the good ideas no matter where they come from. We will chastise the bad ones no matter where they come from. And say it with me, people, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. We play every ball on its merits. So it's been fun seeing that. It kind of amuses me more than anything. But let's get into this next one. I know there's a bunch of chat there, but maybe we can do it at the end of the show, wrap up together. Let's get into this next one, which is Hollywood director James Cameron donates to the Greens as the party surges ahead of Labor. I saw this poll and I saw this headline and I went, fuck, they've just got 20% in the polls, have they? I thought they were surging ahead in the numbers. It's not that at all. It's in donations. And it's hardly a surge ahead. The Green Party is outstripping the Labour Party in big donations this year with less than 4 months until the general election, helped by one of Hollywood's heavyweights. James Cameron has recently contributed $50,000 to the Greens war chest along with his wife Susie. That's in addition to another $50,000 donation from longtime Green supporter and former Xena Warrior Princess star Lucy Tarpett, known as Lucy Lawless. Earlier this month. It's led to the Greens overtaking Labor in large donations this year, amassing just shy of $500,000, while Labor has received about $458,000 in donations above $20,000. It somewhat conflicts with Green MPs Golraz Garman's failed members' bill that sought to introduce a $35,000 annual limit on political donations. Now, let's set the scene to start off with, right? Golraz Garman put out this bill. Now, I wanted to know whether this was Labour Party policy or Green Party policy, or whether it was just a private member's bill, because that could have been a difference. Because the rebate thing for National was a national policy, National Party policy, right? That Luxon went on and on and on and on and on about, and then took it, right? And it is actually, if you look at the Green website, it is actually, authorised by, published by, agreed to by the Green Party in general. The Green Party is calling on the new Justice Minister, Kiritapu Allen, to introduce a $35,000 annual limit on political donations, right? Got that to start with. The other thing about this, Chewy, is when you're also a party that's taken in, there's a $350,000 donation made in 2019 to the Greens, you got to kind of start to go, well, if you are going to call for that and then not do it, I'm just putting it out there that it is problematic in its appearance. That's all I'm saying. I actually don't have a problem with it personally, especially when you see that the right has taken in literally millions of dollars in donations compared to what the left is taking in. But if they're saying no party should get over $35,000, we should make this law, and then they take in, now this was before they proposed a law, so forget the $350, but then they happily take in a couple of $50,000 donations. All I'm saying is you're opening yourself up to criticism, be it valid or not, Chewy. Yours, sir.
So, I don't think you should be able to do political donations personally at all.
Nationalise them? Got to nationalise them.
Nationalise them. No, I think political parties should be publicly funded. I think opening it up for donations just leaves you open to being compromised on things, very much like when we're talking about investments and that sort of thing. Like if you want to be in government, then be unimpeachable. In saying that, one of the other things that we've said on the show is the right does whatever is good for the right without giving a single fuck about anything else. And if that's what you're playing against, that's the game.
Yeah,
So
I agree. No, but I agree. No, I agree with that. And I don't have a problem with the $50,000 donation either. I think the thing here is that if they're going to make a stand from a political party that this is what it should be, like Luxon said, there should not be a rebate. National Party says there should not be a rebate, and then you take a rebate. It's hypocrisy. If you say no party should get over $35,000, and then you get over $35,000 and you take it, if nothing else, there's a parallel, and they're opening themselves up for hypocrisy. That's what I'm saying. Even if it's, I mean, there are people in the chat saying it's not hypocrisy. I'm not even saying it is or it isn't. I'm saying it opens you up to that accusation, and what it does is it takes away the ability for you to criticize Luxon for his hypocrisy. Because everyone's now just going, in fact, it came out last week, everyone's just saying, yeah, but you guys, you're hypocrites as well. Look what you did with those donations things. That's what I'm saying.
I see what you're saying there. I don't think I agree on that. I think
this is the end of the show. Chewy, no, we're done.
Yep.
We have to agree, or else this is
we're cancelling
we're
the
finished.
whole show.
This is the last show. Thanks for being fans for so long.
No, I think there is a difference there. Look, they put through a members bill and it failed. Nobody wanted them to do it. They could do the sneaky thing where they mysteriously get two $25,000 donations. Isn't that what the other parties do? They just break the big ones up.
Yep, the wife Susie could have given 25, and James Cameron could have given 25.
Yep, absolutely. But yeah, my discomfort with this is money in politics at all. Like, I don't care what team it is. I'm Team Green, and I'm glad that James Cameron did it. I wish he didn't have to, or it wasn't allowed to be done. He can just live on his farm in Featherston or wherever the hell he lives, and make movies about blue monkey people.
Good movie that too. I watched it again the other day. I watched it when I was in Auckland. It's great. The thing about Avatar, tangent alert, is the storyline and the CG work within each other. Sometimes you get great CG and shit storylines, or great storylines and shit CG, but it goes quite well together. Anyway, tangent.
The other thing I'd say is Lucy Lawless can do whatever the fuck she wants. Okay, I won't have any criticism of Lucy Lawless.
I actually agree with what you're saying, and I guess to jump back to the Luxon Tesla thing as well, is that we weren't actually criticizing them for taking the Tesla, the money, the rebate. No. Just like I'm not criticizing the Greens for taking the donation. The conversation is, if you say you're not going to do something, or you say something is wrong. Remember, Luxon says the rebates were wrong and then took one. The Greens are saying that, things over $35,000 are wrong, and then they've taken them. I'll just say it again. I'll put it this way. I don't think it's smart politics, because it's really obvious what it opens up the conversation to be tuned into.
Well, hang on. There is a difference in tone.
Go. Tell me.
Right. So Christopher Luxon has said the EV rebate is going to rich Tesla owners, and it's taking away from hardworking ute owners buying $70,000 utes.
Yep.
Right. It is morally wrong, and it's a rort. Then I'm going to do it. Right. And I'm going to do it twice.
Maybe 3 times we find out how the sun scale.
The Greens are going, hey guys, we think that we should do this.
Yep.
What do you guys think? And everyone went, no, we don't agree. And then they went, oh, okay.
Yep.
That's the way you want to play it. We've got James Cameron with a briefcase full of cash.
Yep.
We're just going to take it now.
Yep.
So, I think there is a difference in tone.
I agree. But I'm saying, from the outside looking in, you can see how it's going to be spun. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, I would look, 100%.
No, 100%. I agree, but I agree with you, Joey.
I've seen that argument going round in Twitter, and I think it's dumb, but it is circulating, and it, well, actually, no, I think the people saying it are dumb. Not you, Pat. I know you're playing a role. I'm
not playing a role, and I'm not actually saying it because like I've said, I don't care that Luxon took the rebate, and I don't care that the Greens have taken this. But I guess as an operator in the political world, and I have advised political parties in the past, I think, who did this? Like, who authorised it? Who didn't go back to the cameras and go, you know what, it might be a bit awkward if we do this. Could you do us 225s? Same amount, but it would just make it easier for us that we're not going to have to, we're not going to have to lose one of our
I don't like that either. I don't like that. I look. One of the things that I like about Greens is that their transparency. Someone gave them a $50,000 donation, and they just went, "Cool, write it in the book. We got a $50,000 donation."
Yeah.
When we get into this, well, let's hide what the donation actually is. Like, weren't there donors to National last time round where they split the donation like across their entire list, where like you're all getting $8,000 donations? It's actually part of a much bigger donation that we don't want to be on the books. It's that sort of thing when you talk about money and politics that I have a real discomfort with.
Yeah, and look,
nationalize it.
I actually think we agree, Chewy. You said you disagree with it. I actually think we agree. I guess what I'm talking about is opening themselves up to the appearance of hypocrisy, and you're going, they're playing by the rules. But again, we can say that about Luxon's criticism from last week. He was playing by the rules, but opening himself up for criticism. And I'm not trying to equivocate it and say it's the same, because I agree, because it's not just about Luxon, it's also about him first saying it was his Tesla, then saying it was his wife's Tesla, and then trying to play, I don't know if the actual equivalent would be Martima going, I don't know if James Cameron's given us money. Well, I don't take care of the finances. Like, it's not the same. It's not the same. But I can see how people will draw a parallel, and that's not going to help the Greens. As someone who sits on the left, I wanted to see things that happen that help the left. This, it might only be a 1% kind of, nick in the belt, but this ultimately won't help the left. It may not harm the left, but it won't help the left. That's what I'm saying.
All right, we're back to agreeing with each other. Fine.
Phew, so there'll be a show tomorrow night.
Yeah.
All right, speaking of, huge thanks to our patrons. If you haven't been a patron, if you're like we've heard about people lurkers, we like our lurkers hanging around in the background, checking out what we're doing, and you do like what we do, this genuinely helps. I was talking to someone today about our Adobe suite. We have an Adobe suite that does all the editing and does all the, does all the audio and stuff that we do for this. We have a paid subscription for that's maybe $90 a month or something. This package that we're using for broadcasting is called StreamYard. That's about $70 a month. There are little costs that come up with what we're doing. No one's ever going to get rich off this thing. But if you're someone who goes, I like what they do, I value their content, maybe I'll have 12 coffees next week rather than 13. You want to flick us $5 as a part of it, we'll take it. And if enough of us get together, it does actually make a difference. It's that idea of bringing all the offerings into the storehouse, as I used to hear about as I was a Catholic. And then the storehouse can do something with them. So a huge thanks to our patrons. A huge thanks for being involved financially with us, for these people who are here on our lovely screen. But also, as a reminder, if that's not you, you don't want to do it, you're not able to do it, sharing our content, following us on Twitter, telling people about us, being our advocates, also following us on Apple Podcasts in particular, and listening to our daily audio podcast, which helps in the charts. That's a real genuine way that you can not spend a cent, but also help us in what we do. So thank you for being involved. Thank you for just watching and being involved this way as well. I mean, what we do here in comparison to lots of people on the internet is small and microscopic, but compared to where we started, it's just so exciting to see where we're at today. And we look forward to continuing on at least up until the election, and hopefully beyond. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens to it. We'll see. But certainly up until the election and through beyond that. And look, let me just say this again for people who are haters out there, talking about National's going to win, etc., etc. I'll tell you one fairly depressing thing. If National wins, it will be far easier for us to make money, because actually this will grow. If Labour wins, then we're an echo chamber of people who are happy that their side won. So actually, we're sitting here today going, we're on the left and we want to see the left succeed. For us, financially, that won't be as good for us. If the opposing side wins, it's like, when the Daily Show, not comparing ourselves to them, had Bush to laugh at. It was a hell of a lot easier than when they had Barack Obama in. So actually, from a broadcast point of view, we'll probably do better financially with a national government, but we desperately want to see a left-wing government. So that's where we're at, and that's what we're doing. Arrest JK is reminding people, you're just putting it up, aren't you, to hit that like button. That helps in the algorithms for other people to find us and stuff again. And that's about it for now, for me at least anyway, Joey. Anything from you? Any
Yep.
chat you want to put out there before we sign off?
You're probably going to smack my hand for this one, but it's just too good. Any truth to the rumor that actor receiving donations in Nazi gold? This is the type of conspiracy theory that I can really get behind.
The answer is no. There's no truth in that.
Probably not.
So,
it's South American gold from Argentina.
Right.
No, that's it. I'm not going on a tangent. We're
can if
coming
you
out in an hour, 20 minutes.
All right.
No.
Our 1 hour, our 80-minute 1 hour show is done for the night. Thanks, Steve, for joining us. You would have seen in that clip that I played, there was a defense lawyer who was speaking, quite a high-profile defense lawyer. Let me find a picture of the lovely man. If I can. Talking about, the 3 strikes law here. Here we go. John Munro, defense lawyer. I actually approached John to come on tonight's show. He said he was busy with kids and stuff, which is, of course, family first, no problems. But I've also said to John, if you'd like to come back on a show later in the week, maybe do a pre-record and have a conversation around some of these laws, he'd be welcome to. We'd love to talk to him. Also, as I said, the prosecution people within the New Zealand Police, I've got to call in with them to find out more about where the situation with Karen is at. But remember, I'll say it again, my understanding is if the police recommend dismissal of charges, then there will be dismissal of charges. So we're not sitting here going, well, let's wait and see. Maybe he won't. It's like, that's where it's at, but we're just trying to be accurate with that. All right. Hold my beer. Yep. All right. We'll catch you from 9 p.m. Tomorrow night for another edition of Big Hearing News. It's been lovely being with you tonight. Thanks for joining us. #ShareOurShit, and we will see you anon. Hooroo.
Cheers, fam.